Fragmented records, fragmented self. A form rejects a name that everyone uses, a dashboard flags a mismatch, and suddenly a meeting is spent proving you are you. Notifications keep arriving, but each one speaks to a different version of your life. When every institution stores its own record of you, identity becomes a negotiated output of systems, because the versions that can be counted, verified, and approved gain authority over the version that is actually lived. Institutions do not store you. They store proxies, fields, categories, scores, credentials, timestamps, and status flags. Those proxies exist for a reason. They reduce uncertainty at scale. A clerk, a manager, an automated workflow, and an audit trail cannot rely on lived context. They rely on what is legible. Here is the central constraint. A large system can only act on information that is standardized and retrievable. Freeform truth is expensive. Structured data is cheap. The constraint is not a mistake. It is the price of coordination. From that constraint comes a trade-off. The more a system demands consistent, comparable records, the more it must compress human complexity into categories. Precision about the category increases, while fidelity to the person decreases. The record becomes clearer as the person becomes flatter. Incentives sharpen this. Institutions are rewarded for reducing risk, preventing fraud, enforcing eligibility rules, and demonstrating compliance. The fastest way to show control is to require a stable identifier and a stable set of attributes. If an exception is granted, someone must justify it. Justification creates cost and exposure, so the institution prefers the version of you that fits the checklist. This produces a feedback loop. The record drives decisions. Decisions determine access. Access determines which opportunities you can take. Those opportunities generate the next records. A profile that labels you inactive reduces responses. Reduced responses confirm inactive. A credential that expires blocks a door. The blocked door prevents experience. The missing experience justifies the block. The system updates itself from its own consequences. Because multiple institutions have different purposes, they store different versions. One system wants a stable legal identity for payments. Another wants a behavioral identity for risk scoring. Another wants a role identity for permissions. Another wants a performance identity for evaluation. None of these versions is inherently false, but each is partial, and each competes for authority. The gap grows when records travel better than people. A record can be copied, synced, and compared. Lived experience cannot. A record is portable across departments. Your context is not. This creates a second-order effect. The institution begins to treat the record not as evidence about you. In meetings and reviews, the profile becomes the speaker. The person becomes the one who must appeal. Over time, this changes what identity means inside the system. Identity shifts from the continuity of a life to the continuity of identifiers. What cannot be stored is treated as noise. What is stored becomes reality, not because anyone is malicious, but because action requires a handle, and the record is the handle. This mechanism reaches beyond paperwork. Attention follows what has consequences. If approvals, access, and status depend on fields and dashboards, attention is pulled toward maintaining legibility, keeping profiles consistent, keeping credentials current, keeping the narrative aligned with the stored version. Responsibility starts to feel like record keeping because the system rewards what it can verify. Meaning erodes when the proxy becomes the goal. If identity is reduced to what can be measured, then being known becomes being categorized, and being trusted becomes being validated. The question, who am I, quietly turns into which version of me will be accepted here. The institutional mirror does not merely reflect, it shapes. There is also a moral hazard of convenience. A stored profile offers a fast verdict, and fast verdicts feel like certainty. But certainty obtained by compression is not neutral. It encodes values about what counts: stability over change, compliance over nuance, comparability over particularity. The institution may call this efficiency, and it is efficient. But efficiency reveals values. When many such systems surround a person, the self can feel dispersed. One life, many authoritative summaries. Not because the person lacks integrity, but because each system demands a different, simplified coherence. The cost is paid in attention and in the quiet pressure to perform consistency. Consider for a moment the versions of you that exist as records: the profile that grants access, the credential that proves eligibility, the file that explains a decision, the history that cannot be edited. Notice which of those versions has the power to open or close doors, and which version is invisible to the system. Then examine the boundary. Where does your attention shift from living your day to maintaining your legibility? Name the proxy that most often speaks on your behalf. Name the place where a mismatch becomes a problem. This is not a call to fix anything, it is an invitation to see the structure clearly, because unseen proxies quietly become masters. You are more than your stored summaries, but systems will treat summaries as reality because they can.